All right. So just because I know, because there's two of you, right? We normally, not normally, but we often only have one person. It's very easy for my small mind to remember one name. Yeah. Two names is always possible. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves? Tell us about your company, who you are, what you do, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Matt, you take the lead.
Okay. So Matt Roberts, member of MR² Construction Services.
And I'm Mike Robyck, and also the member. We're obviously partners. That makes the MR². Matt Roberts, Mike Robyck. So we've worked together for a long time, so it was easy to come up with our logo and name. So we'll get into that. But I'm a member with the team of Matt and Mike.
Now, where did you guys meet and get started?
So Mike and I have been working together for almost 20 years now.
Correct.
I don't know exactly. It's been so long. We kind of know exactly how each other's going to react to certain things. We've been working together so long. So I got out of college, and I came back home to the area, and I was looking for the biggest and best construction company I could work for that was going to pay me the right amount of money at the time. Being out of college, I was interested in making good profit and set myself up for a career. I landed at BBL, which was my number one choice at the time. And within a year, I got paired up with Mike. And Mike was running some very large, complicated jobs, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And I got very lucky to basically train under Mike. In the process, being young and being a little more computer savvy, I was able to show Mike a few things that we did or were learning, in college that helped enhance the teamwork where Mike and ultimately another superintendent, that we kind of all became a team and ran some very large projects in the area for, a span of about 10 years together. It was a great learning experience. I kind of cut my teeth and grew my wings at that point under Mike and another superintendent. And at some point in time, we separated. I began to run my own work independently. Mike had other opportunities that I'm sure he can tell you about within the company, and we separated as far as working together on individual projects until an opportunity arose where we joined back up at another company, the Pike Company, kind of doing the same thing at a very senior level. Mike had already gone to this company on the upper ranks and needed some guys that was capable of running the work that they had acquired. Thought of me, and we joined back up. At that point, we had a couple-year stint there before I kept plugging away at Mike, and finally, Mike came in my office one day and says, "Yep, it's time. Let's create our own company." So that was about 5 years ago today, and the company is just starting to really take off right now for us. And
Mike, that's kind of in a nutshell. That's where it all happened. I was at the same firm, BBL, prior to Matt being there. As I'm old, so older, I should say. Seasoned vet here. But same thing. I mean, we were always building large projects. Obviously, BBL does a lot of large work. And Matt, when he joined to BBL, he ended up coming on with my team to build a lot of hotel projects and such. And we just gelled right off the gate, working together. He's excellent with the computer software programs and organizational skills. And, my side of the business is geared towards the construction aspect, building it from the ground up. Kind of done that all my life. So that was a good partnership throughout the time of being at other companies. And as he mentioned, after that stint of being there for many years, I ended up at Pike to run an office for them in Clifton Park. And eventually, I needed to have some talent, so I was able to get Matt to join on board and come over, and we did a big, large project with them in the area. And it wasn't much longer that the opportunities were knocking on the door, that people were calling us directly saying, "We want to work with you." So that's how we became okay, we're going to go out and do this on our own and make it happen. So,
Exciting
that's
stuff.
where it started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know, Matt, you mentioned before, you went to BBL, you were in college, you had a burning desire to land in a specific industry. And Mike, it sounds like you did that, you were involved in some way in construction your whole life. So tell us a little bit about, before your career started, what kind of motivated you or prompted you to get into construction?
All right, well, I guess I'll start. To be honest, perfectly honest, my father. He was a construction guy, always around the house building something or out working construction. He was in a New York telephone company also. And I just kind of learned watching, as a kid, little kid. And went off to college for mechanical technology. Enjoyed many aspects of that, but realized I kind of wanted to be also watching it get built. And ended up working in summers, coming home from college for my stepbrother, and doing residential construction, and banging nails. We really didn't have nail guns. I'm dating myself again. We really built it hammer and nail, and just enjoyed that aspect of the job and understood how to make it ground up, and then took it to the next level and became, with another company, become a superintendent. Traveled a little bit around New York State, building buildings, made it to the PM project management level, just kind of ultimately just going up the ladder, I'll call it, until it became, senior management, vice president, etc. Just as you grow, you learn more every day. I don't think there's a day that goes by you can't learn more, especially in this industry. So that's kind of the nutshell of where I started, and now here we are, so many years later.
So my side is a little bit different. My father was more on the engineering side. My older brother, they're into the mechanical stuff, cars, bolts, grease. Not that I was not into it, but it just really wasn't my thing. I didn't see myself going into engineering of mechanical things like lawnmowers, tillers, and things like that. Cars even. So I gravitated early in life to art, and I kept growing and growing. And in my final couple of years of high school, you had to start getting serious about what you're going to do with yourself. I didn't know I wanted to go to college. I didn't know what was out there for art. But the more I started to explore, and the more I looked at my competition, and the more I looked at my long-term opportunities in the art world, I just kind of had a realization of myself. Who I ultimately wanted to be and what I wanted to do, we're all not cut out for everything. And I kind of saw that. No matter how hard I tried, there was guys just to have talent that you're born with in certain things in life. And I just didn't have it, in my opinion. So it was kind of like a gut check for me. I could go into the art world and I could do something that could make some money, and I could create stuff that I wanted to create. But I didn't see my other life goals being met by those occupations at the time. So I said, well, what can I do? So I did a lot of research. I always loved, I lived in this area. Some areas around here are obviously affluent. There's some higher end homes. I always really liked the detail and everything in the building. I always watched, and I was always watching these things happen. I said, you know what? I kind of like construction. I never really done it. I mean, I swung hammers and did odd projects.
Different form of
my
art.
father, but I hadn't really done construction of like any. I didn't take a job like framing or anything when I was a teenager. So I looked at the salary ranges. I looked at the opportunities, and then I ultimately ended up deciding that I can go to college for construction management, and I can either shift into the high-end residential market or go and pivot into commercial construction. At the time when I started this, I thought I was going into high-end residential. The John Witts of the world was like my goal, right? And that changed pretty rapidly once I got into the actual construction program and start to learn about what you can build and what it takes and all the different opportunities there. So by the time I landed at, I ultimately ended up going to Boston to Wentworth Institute of Technology, and that's really came fully entrenched to say I want to do big, large. At one point, I was looking at football stadium type level skyscrapers. Before I ultimately ended up graduating, coming to BBL, and then had the opportunity to build some very large projects. So,
and you guys awesome. Only focus on the large projects. You're not doing the residential stuff or the high-end residential stuff. It's all more that commercial, industrial.
Yeah. All commercial.
Big stuff. Yeah. Big stuff.
Yeah.
Big
toys,
we
do
right?
small commercial too. I mean,
yeah.
There's a lot of fit-out jobs, a lot of additions. For the right client, we'll do anything.
Yeah.
And I think in any type of business, you get a good client to work for, and you're going to do what they ask. Right?
Yeah.
But residential, no, it is a different world of construction. So I try to stay a little bit away from that.
It's funny too. You mentioned the nail gun. It just made me think. I had to build a new chicken coop. We have a farm, and I had to build a new coop, and I was getting ready to trim it out, and I didn't have a finish gun. So I was like, all I had was a framing gun. You know what I mean? And I was like, and I contemplated hand nailing the trim end, and I was just like, I think it took about 18 seconds of me contemplating having to hand nail all the trim on there, and I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Now I went and spent more on the nail gun, the finish gun, than if I had bought the coupe.
Yeah,
right.
But you justify it because you're like, I'll use it on something else.
Absolutely. So that's really funny when you said that. Oh man. So and so how many employees do you guys have now?
Let's see. I think we have 5.
5?
Yeah.
And then you use subs too, or all your project, or you run a
heavily on the sub.
Yeah, a lot of subcontracted.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of ways to do it. Obviously, right? You can be heavy on staff, or you can have so you run a tight crew, and then they manage the subs. Or tell us about how that kind of goes.
So on the self-perform side, as we get larger and larger, we will bring on more self-perform, specifically most likely in the carpentry and the concrete divisions. And that's what you'll see a lot of the big general contractors do. Occasionally they'll branch into something that is not common, like they might take on a small electrical division or a small HVAC division. But we will likely expand in carpentry and concrete because those are the things from a general contract that you can control easily. They're a benefit to keeping the overall cost down on a project, which helps us secure work. And not that they're not specialty, but they're not electrical specialty, which carries a whole lot of more complexities and complications.
Yeah, I mean, we basically focus on having supervision, so superintendents, project managers, and typically work with a lot of the same subcontractors over and over again. A couple different plumbers, a couple different electricians. So we get to have a network of our own trades that we all know how to work with each other. And that works well. And it is handy, like Matt did say, having a few guys is very important from a carpentry and concrete standpoint that can do the odds and ends, because there's always jobs that it's hard to find the subcontractors to come do because they're just too small.
Yeah.
That scope is not interesting, right? And everybody's very busy, so it's hard. So we do have guys that we can pull in as needed when we do that. And we do have working superintendents also. Yep. So it's working well, but we are having to expand, which is a good thing.
It's good problem,
yeah, it's a very good thing.
Absolutely.
When we've talked about it, I really believe you're either growing or dying, right? So you either have to be expanding and dealing with those struggles and challenges that come with expansion, and or if you're trying to, once you start trying to be the people that are just trying to maintain what you have and hold on to it, then ultimately you're just something's going to happen. It's going to take something out from under you, and now you're dying. So
you just got to take advantage of the times to some degree where you want to expand. I think you also want to be careful with that and how quickly you do it, because sometimes that can come back to get you. But being smart about it.
So and maybe for some of the listeners, maybe they're in your situation and thinking about maybe doing their first expansion and their first kind of growth bubble or whatever. I mean, so what do you look at? Like, do you look at the market? Do you look at where your company is at? Like, what's the smart way to expand from where you guys are?
I think personally, I think you look at what your projected workload really is and be honest with yourself, right? If you think you're going to have a projection of 6 months, I'd look a little further. nobody wants to be in a situation where you want to take on multiple employees and put themselves at risk, but also the employees at risk. That 6 months just came and went. I really didn't have a forecast of a year or 2 years. So project the best you can so that when you do try to grow, you're not overgrowing too quickly. In my opinion, I mean, you get some large jobs where it can land you some 2-year windows, then I guess you have a little more flexibility, right? But if you're talking smaller, jobs that are going to take 3-4 months, then bite it off a little bit at a time, I think.
Sustainable growth. So that's kind of what has happened with the smaller jobs that started off as a few, and now it's become so many that at times it's hard to track. Not that it's not odd, but you just, sometimes you're in the car, right? And you're just thinking about everything that's going on, and you're like, now we're up to 20, 30 of those things going on at once. Where before you can kind of like in your head go, all right, well, this job, what's going on? This, 20, 30 jobs. Now your head's a little jumbled, right? Good problem to have. We've built to that, right? Because that was how we did it. We didn't just take everything that we could to get to 20, 30 jobs. We slowly built to that point so that we could effectively manage it. Mike kind of hit it. So when the bigger jobs come through, we look at it a little bit differently because they're different types of employees sometimes, and they're commitments that we can and say, all right, well, this person is going to be there for a year or 2 years even, and that changes how you build the company. So there's also different types of employees, right? So there's people that are good at the very large work, and there's people that are good at multiple small jobs. And very rarely do you find an individual that's great at both. They're out there, but some people are better than others at certain things. So that also affects how we hire and who we hire. And we've been very lucky so far.
It's been great. It's been actually really good. But you also, ultimately down the road, you got to think of beyond yourselves, I think, right? I always say to people, just remember where you came from first, right? So put yourself in their shoes. You're bringing on, they're taking a risk. They want to come to work for you, but they want to make sure you're secure and you have some workload.
Right.
But you're ultimately doing it because you want to make sure you can handle all that workload, because ultimately the person paying you, you don't want to get them upset because you can't perform. If you can't perform, it's all for nothing, and it can tumble down quickly. So you just have to be very safe about that.
And in our market, word of mouth and relationships are everything at every component of our company.
Right? Yeah.
So one bad job can ruin a lot of relationships very quickly. So you never want to be in that position, right?
Only good as your last deal, right? Like, or as
Some-
good as your last project.
Or the last 5% of the project.
Yeah.
You got to kind of
People
think.
don't remember sometimes. If you have a job that's 6 or 8 or 10 months long, they almost forgot about everything that took place in the beginning, middle, and then that closure, getting it done, finishing, because that's what the people see at the end. And if you can't get it closed and finished, then you get negative impact, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's that last 5%, really.
So obviously hiring is a big topic right now, and everybody's in this market. Things are very interesting. So what are you guys doing to separate, yourselves and where are you finding staff, to make sure you uphold the reputation?
Go first, you want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
So
It's a tough one, actually. I'm going to defer that one.
That's good news.
That's right. I had some level of response for that one.
Yeah.
So Mike and I, along with that growth, that planned growth, and not just taking everything, have acquired or have worked to acquire the right employees that we know and trust because we worked with them in the past.
Gotcha.
Not to steal from other companies, but looking for people in their career path that are looking for a change. And we know they're quality people. So again, small world, big industry, small world, word of mouth, conversations, evolve. And we've been very successful in hiring the right people for the scope of work because of that. So a big focus for us to date has been hiring people that we know and trust already, and we know what their skill sets are, and we know what they're looking for, right? So we have those even in the interview process, it's more of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Seeing where they are, trying to explain to them where we are, where we want to be, and what their opportunities would be with a company that's growing and is new. And we're directly competing sometimes against the big guys, the big companies, and showing them what the opportunity is to grow with us. And sometimes that works for individuals, sometimes it doesn't.
If we bring on the people that we're familiar with to some degree, we know they're solid. They also know some people too that they can bring on, that they're going to say, yes, these guys or girls are the ones we want to talk to.
It's almost like you're marketing not only the clients, but today's day and age, you're marketing to your employees too. And we find in our business, you get a good one and they're happy.
Exactly.
They refer the like kind.
Well, in today's world, with what's all going on in the last few years or whatever, it's every industry's into this right now.
Yeah.
Everybody.
People are more mindful of who they're working for these days.
Right.
And the compensation package definitely is up there based on the current market with the pandemic and everything and some of the crazy stuff that's happening. But people really do want to work for who they trust, I think. And like you said, one good employee can spread the appropriate word to gain you another good employee and another good employee. Very valuable.
Yeah. So we're gonna take a quick, short commercial break.
Sure.
You wouldn't believe how short it'll be, actually. And then we'll come back. We've got a couple more questions for you guys.
Excellent.
Very good.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it. Right back.
This episode of Blue Collar Startup is brought to you by Daigle Cleaning Systems and DCS Franchising. Launch your blue collar startup with a proven system like Daigle Cleaning Systems. This episode also brought to you by Spa City Digital. Take your blue collar business to the next level with Spa City Digital, making marketing easier. Special thanks to our guests today, Matt Roberts and Mike Robyck from MR². And now, back to the interview.
The most undertold part of people who jump into their own business. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into that. It doesn't just happen because everybody contemplates, well, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? How am I gonna sustain? But you guys did what it took.
Well,
3 hours
one part
away.
of a side story to that, though, we get contracted with Camco to start, and all of a sudden we get involved into the depths of this thing and realize there's a big problem here with the site. The site conditions are absolutely terrible that we're building on, and the site engineer drew up the plans and we put that out to bid, and the bids were coming in so high on the site work part of the job, and I had to go back and we had to talk it over with Camco. We're like, this is crazy. Is this job still going to go forward? I mean, that's how bad the site numbers were, and the job got kind of delayed because we had to introduce another engineer to assist to try to come up with some value savings here. How do we change this and not such a big hit? Because they were going to say, the heck with the job. And now this is what brought us to start our business.
Right.
We're sitting here working out of a coffee shop, and
It was the calculated
How
risk
we-
that we took when we had an anchor project that would get us started.
And here we are. We got families to support, So I had to make a call back to one of the owners from Camco, and this is why I say, one of the best clients we've ever had. What's the situation? What are we going to do? And they just said, listen, we contracted you. We're going to figure out a way to move forward, and we're going to keep paying you even though the job hasn't started. And we'll make sure that you succeed as a contractor. We want you just like you want us. And that's
great.
What's great about it.
Speaks volumes about you guys.
I mean, that was a situation. I'll tell you.
Wow.
For like 3 months, I think it was a scary situation.
It was, and I can echo what Mike said. We can't say enough about Camco and their ownership team and all their employees actually as well. They were just phenomenal to help us get started. You don't get many opportunities like that. So anybody going to business, if you can have a relationship, again, we're back to relationships.
Yeah.
Mike had the relationship that got us started, and it worked out because of that relationship. Had we just been another contract, they probably wouldn't have felt the same way that they did with us and dealt with the project the same way. Now, we worked to resolve that issue.
Yeah, we dove deep
and we
into
did.
it with that one.
To save the project for them as well, and that's what we were there for.
Would you say so? Like, because Devin that was on with us for episode 3. So he was an administrator in a school, and then was doing residential stuff on the side, and then but because of an anchor project, because of a big job he had coming up, that was the thing that kind of gave him the space that he needed to really be able to say, all right, I'm going from being employed over here or doing the side hustle or whatever it does, and this is going to give me the ability to go out full time. It's going to keep me engaged for months, and that's also going to give me time to try to line up some other jobs behind it to keep going. Is that? Do you think that's
the main thing? Yeah,
really
that was our anchor at the time.
Yeah.
And we already had a couple other things in the mix.
Yep.
And that allowed us some time to secure other projects in the meantime.
Yeah, just give you that space, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which we had to be careful because it was the two of us, obviously,
right.
and we were traveling.
Yeah.
So we couldn't really get too crazy with how much we started to take originally. But we gave us the opportunity to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know where we're doing, where we're heading. If you got something, let us know. We're willing to look at it.
You guys weren't stressed out at all during that time.
Oh
right?
God, you see this?
Always stressed out, but that's I've come to embrace stress. For me,
yeah,
I
and
feed
still,
off
right?
it.
You still feel
I
some
feed
of that.
off of it.
Yeah.
I feel stress every day, but that's our industry. That's the stress that you self-impose on yourself to keep pushing the envelope, to keep growing the company, to keep your employees growing. I've learned about myself that when that stops, I can deal with it for about 3 days, and then I'm bored.
Yeah.
It's just me. That's how I'm geared.
Yeah.
So without the stress,
good and bad.
it just there's a lot of negatives to stress, but for me personally, I kind of will feed off of it.
How about you with the number of employees you got? I mean, you still feel that tinge in your chest area on a daily basis, weekly basis?
Well, it's funny, Eric, our director of operations, he's done, he came on back in August of this year, and he's much more seasoned and has a lot more management experience than I do. And he was like, you gotta chill. to a point, he's like, you gotta stay relaxed, and that was and he's a military guy. He goes, hey, we're not getting shot at. Things will
Right.
It kind of put things in perspective for me, and he goes, you drive off that stress. He goes, but and that's great, but sometimes you just got to step away from it too. So hearing that from somebody else is kind of like, okay, because I didn't realize it until that point, but it's like, you just keep going, and it's like you're bored when you don't have that going on.
Yeah, I mean, every business is stressful. So if you're deep and engaged into what you do and you love what you do, there's going to be stress.
Yeah.
And even when I was building hotels and such, I mean, I was literally working at BBL for Don would do personally any of his pet jobs, hotels and such. And talk about stress. I mean, I love the guy. He was awesome. He was like a father to me, and learned a lot. But the stress I was taking home working for somebody else.
Sure.
Was just as deep as what it is now, but yet, you know what? This is stress self-induced to some degree. This is what we do now. So it's different stress, but it's stress, right? It's ours, and we can control it to some degree a lot better than back then. I just had to do what I had to do, and Don would want what he wanted. So, and it's stress, but when you have it and you can control it on your own, it's a little easier. I more worry about the others than I do with me. I'd rather make sure that Matt's going to succeed, and I want to make sure our employees are succeeding, make sure everybody's got what they need to do the jobs. That's the stress I worry about. I don't even worry about that we have 30 little jobs.
Not anymore. You've gotten so good at it.
We'll get it done. Whatever.
I know. So lately I know I've been even more stressed out because we need to tighten up some of our process work. Because same thing. So we now, we basically, COVID almost killed our marketing company. So we had to restart almost. I think I had 2 clients from scratch and then fight back, And now we're back up to, we've got 50 clients, and so we've always got 30 things going on all the time, same time, and a newer staff, and lately I know I've been super stressed out because our processes aren't very tight, and so I got to refine those and stuff. So There's a question here somewhere, I promise. So I guess, do you guys find, like, do you rely on any kind of process? Are you guys process guys? Do you document your project? Like, what does that look like for you?
So I'm heavily processed, and I foresee the way company growth has to be is it needs to be structured. Mike and I both came from very structured, organized. There's a process for everything. At some points, we kind of looked at each other and said, "This is too much. This is overreaching, and it's losing its value because it's some of the structure was unnecessary in our minds." So when we created MR², we knew we wanted structure, we knew we wanted processes and procedures, and we knew we wanted softwares and things like that to help us do that. Just recently, as more and more employees have come on, and the growth of the company has continued. We've been starting to implement more of those things. When it was Mike and I, it was less of an issue because we knew we were constantly sharing documents. We're constantly talking every day. But now, as you've got an umbrella of people you're dealing with in projects, and you're not intimately involved every day, those processes need to be in place. Mm-hmm. So we continue to expand. We brought on a significant piece of software in the construction industry called Procore. Derek, you're probably very familiar with Procore. It is like the go-to software in our industry as far as I'm concerned, and all the major players around here use it. So that's been a long time coming, and I'm very happy it's on board now, and we will continue to grow the company with it, keep our employees organized. The same thing, from payroll to accounting to billings, receivables, all these processes and procedures. We have manuals and we have training, and we're as you're bringing on people, you're constantly resyncing the team about how you want to happen. So on the few hours a week I get to be in the office and focus on operations, I'm constantly trying to make sure that the employees are following those procedures and try to better those and look for opportunities. And some of the employees themselves have presented ideas and opportunities that we incorporate and better the company. So it's very important to me. I don't see us, growing to the $20, $30, $100 million contractor without embracing that. So that's what we're working for.
Yeah, I generally go through in my mind and then write it on paper. Mm-hmm. Basically, I'll do job by job of where it's at, what we need to do, make lists basically, so that I can track and relieve some of that pressure that's in my head onto the paper, and then bring it out and make sure that the guys in the field are on the same page as I am. Yeah. Right? I mean, they should be a little further ahead. They're there every day, but I just want to make sure that those tasks are being taken care of. But it also helps to relieve some stuff for me, knowing that I got every job accounted for. I believe this is what's got to happen on each job. Now let's go get it done.
Yeah. So. Peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
I know half the time with our stuff, it's like I'm actually just getting in the way if I get involved, but I just need peace of mind to know that these things are happening.
You're going to go crazy.
I do the same thing.
100%. You're asking an employee, what about this? And they already got an answer, and that's exactly what you want.
That's what you want.
That's exactly what you want to hear. And the more that happens, the more you can entrust the employee, right?
Yep. You got to have the routine. Not every job's the same, but in some respects they are. So they all have that same routine that you can map out and make sure it's being followed. And then there's always a curveball.
Always a curveball.
Well, speaking of routines, do you guys have any daily routines that are interesting, any hobbies, things to get yourself away from work?
I work at home. For me,
it's no more coffee.
I recently we moved and a year ago out to Charlton and bought a house out there that. When we were looking to find a house, we were at the point of, my wife and I were at the point of maybe downsizing a little bit. Kids were moving out and getting older now, but we found a piece of property and a house that's bigger than we wanted, and it needed some work, love and care. Hadn't had any attention in years, so been doing a lot of remodeling to the whole thing every weekend. So just kind of, which is great because some of that stress can be put into that, and then I get more stress out of that. No, it's been great, and other than that, I don't have a lot more hobbies anymore. My kids are all grown up. I used to wrestle and coach wrestling and referee in wrestling for high school for years. I was a wrestler all through high school and college, and I grew up in Burnt Hills, and I was a coach there for quite a while.
And you got away with no cauliflower?
I only had a little bit of it, and I had one time I had to get it taken care of years ago. But I always had my headgear on.
Did you wear headgear?
If you didn't have it on during practice, you're going to end up with it if you wrestle long enough. Yeah, without a doubt. So, but other than that, no, just living out there on the farm and hanging out.
Farm life's the best life, man. We bought ours back in 2019. We actually looked at a couple places over in Charlton.
Did you?
Yeah, we looked everywhere, man. I mean, it was like a year-long search trying to find the right property.
We got so lucky.
We did same. We say the same thing. Yep.
We did. It was actually really lucky when we were looking.
We
were just down the road from here before in Milton, so
nice.
I grew up for quite a few years when the kids were growing up.
Yeah.
But
any animals out there?
Yeah, I just have a dog because we've got a French bulldog.
Nice.
And next door to the farm has a lot of animals.
Oh yeah.
He's got a bunch of cows, and they're always right next to our house. Sometimes on our property.
Oh yeah,
I come to the fence that
They've gotten out, and I've had to chase them down and try to wrangle them
Big
back
cows.
in. It didn't work out too good, but they don't listen very well.
Yeah.
No, not unless you got some food for them or something.
That's funny.
But yeah.
So I have my kids keep me pretty busy. I've got a 4-month-old and a 4-year-old daughter, and a 4-month-old son and a 4-year-old daughter, and they're constantly, I mean, from the time you get up or the time they wake you up to even in the middle of the night, of course, although my wife has been doing a lot of that heavy lifting. I appreciate that.
Special shout out to his wife.
In case you're watching this. So a lot of kid activities. We also had a house built a couple of years ago, and I continue, in construction, I continue to what I call perfect it to be exactly the way I want it. So I always got a little project going on like that, and then I try to golf as much as I can, which is not nearly as much as I want, but such is life, and we get in the rounds when we can, and my golf game continues to stay status quo.
Is that 90s, 80s, low 100s?
Let's just say 90s.
90s, all right. 90s. 90s is good golf, man. What we were talking about morning routines. What do you think the biggest mistake you guys have made along the way? And I know we can all say we made lots of them, right? But what do you
lots
think?
of them. That is a hard question.
I guess everything's about timing too. I said it many times. Again, I'm older, not real old. Whatever, but I won't dwell on that. But if I could have done this maybe 5 years sooner, in my opinion,
100%.
To me, it probably would have made more sense. But the timing was the timing. I mean, 5 years prior to that, I don't know if it would have been there. Right. So,
or maybe you weren't ready. Or
I mean, just looking at my future, I guess is what I'm saying. But 5 years sooner, maybe that's not a mistake. I don't know if I can call it that because it definitely worked out great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, sometimes in the past, I've said if I could go back and do it different, I'd do something different. I don't know what that is.
Right.
Because I've done it so long. It's just something you say, right? I would try. What would you do? I don't know. So, anyways, I don't think I have a very large mistake. Things have been great. We've got 3 great kids and a great wife, and I don't know. Not a millionaire, but don't think it doesn't matter.
Working on it.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
We're happy.
So, how about this one? If there was one secret to your success, or if there was one skill that you would say would make someone successful, what do you think that would be?
Go ahead. I think what differentiates Mike and Matt and MR²'s methodologies, and I think I picked this straight up from Mike. It was attention to detail never just accepting, what's there at first until you fully vet it and understand it and decide, is there an opportunity for a better outcome or success or solution for a client, and everything you do with a project. So I think that's what's it's a little bit different for us. We really embrace that, and we encourage our people to do the same thing. We came from what we term in industry design build backgrounds, which gives us that very hands-on approach and not just go execute what somebody tells you to execute. And I think that really makes a difference to us and our clients.
I agree. I mean, as people grow through the construction, hopefully they learn from, starting a little bit down lower and wake your, maybe it's the field, maybe it's an assistant, whatever. I think you need to just don't jump and just because you got an answer and go. I think you got to think about it. I've had that rule of thumb in my head for years that, for someone I had worked for before, if they said it 3 times, they meant it. If they said it once, let's wait, because you don't know.
Time.
Yeah.
But the third time he really wants to do that.
When you're talking about, saying ideas that seem far-fetched or are going to be really expensive to do, you're going to hold off and wait, make sure, don't jump into the decision because it might not be the right answer to just go. And then I think that one of the big thing is listen. You got to listen. Hear what they're saying, right? Listen to that client. We've had people have said in the past, client's always right. Like, it might not be just that. Listen to everything. When you're working out on a job and you've got subcontractors and you're trying to figure out, coordination of how things are going to come together in an area. It's not just one contractor that's doing it. There's probably 3 or 4 that are involved in that. So let's listen to all of them, figure out the input out of that. Okay, now how are we going to attack it as a team? So listen and then do, right? You gotta listen to people. You just do. And then at the end, I'm probably always right, but one of our employees.
We have a nickname. It's Mike's Way.
It's Mike's Way. Yeah.
There you go. Now they call me Half Price Mike because I keep getting
Half
Price
Price
Mike. But anyways,
Gotta have a little fun with it.
A little fun, yeah. So just a couple of as we start to wrap up here, just a couple of quick rapid fire questions. What the importance of work ethic?
It's at the top of my list.
Yeah.
Integrity and ethic is so important in everything you do, and definitely in business. Your name is everything, and your employees represent you, so they're your name too. So
the employees are out there. Their names are on the trucks or on the shirts or whatever. Even when you hand shirts out to subcontractors and they're wearing them. They got to have respect for everything that's going on.
And your employees need to see from example. You've probably heard that your whole life, right? It's very true. You can't expect your employee to do something you're not doing.
Yeah. So last question, just because we're getting close to our time limit here. If you were going to give listeners one piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, I guess I would say, if you're going to go out and do something, first make sure there's something you love and you want to do. Don't do it just for the money. And like I said just a few minutes ago, it's just really listen to people. Listen to that client, what they really want, and deliver what they're asking for to the best of your ability. Because not everybody can do everything, right? But you got to give it your 110%, from your heart. And I've done this all my life, construction, and I think it has to start there. If it doesn't start from here, you're just out there like a robot.
Yeah.
And people see that. So you gotta believe what you're doing, and once you believe what you're doing, it's gonna go off to the next person and the next person, the people that are working for you. They're gonna start reacting that way too.
I would add, be humble and utilize all the great people you have in your life, especially that are involved in industry and business. We've started our business, and a lot of the things that we relied upon as far as accountants, insurance, HR, or stuff came from knowledge from people that we had conversations with that we had worked with in the past or know as personal friends. So utilize your resources and be humble as you start something.
Nice.
If people want to find you, where can they reach you?
Well, we can be reached our website, right? We got MR² Construction Services is on the website. We really use our phone numbers, my cell phone. And people call me all the time at 518-361-3589. Matt's got his phone numbers on his truck.
518-233-4119.
We're office is over at Old Stonebreak Road in Malta.
Nice.
We've got our shop over there. And anytime anyone wants to come visit us, it's hard to find.
We have Unified Beer right across the street.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Scott, stop in and say hi to Empire Square and grab a pint on
They
your
got the
way.
Ninja Lab right there. too.
Yeah, Chad owns it. Chad's one of the owners.
Oh,
Get out of here.
Really? Ninja Lab?
Yeah. Yeah, my business partner,
Oh,
Chad
that's
Basie.
Oh, it's like Chad.
Shit.
We did a little
Small
work
word. We
for
did
him.
small work.
Oh, you guys know Chad?
We did
Yeah,
work
we
for
did.
Chad. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
Small joke.
Well, let's stop in before you guys leave. What about you guys on any social media channels, any of that kind of stuff? Or
We promote on LinkedIn, primarily. We haven't really started a Facebook or an Instagram type set up, but we are pushing the LinkedIn page.
LinkedIn? Okay.
So
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you guys
Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
appreciate you guys'
Time.
time.
Absolutely.
This is great.